Hey guys, welcome to Beyond the Surface with Caleb. In today's video, I want to talk about spiritual bypassing. What it is, common traps, and how to balance it. So, I'm a little bit sore, and I want to start this video with a mindfulness meditation to kind of relax my nervous system. So I'm just crunching my toes, moving my body around, just focusing on everything that's going on in my nervous system, my muscles. If there's any tension, just being aware of it. Taking a couple deep breaths. Alright, you may hear a noise in the background, it's okay. Or you may not. Alright, so spiritual bypassing. If you've been into spirituality and spiritual concepts and all this different stuff, you may have heard the term spiritual bypassing. And there's a lot of confusion about it and a lot of uncertainty and fear. Because there's a lot of people that have gone through the rat race and achieved a lot of things, or got to the point where they just realized that more things and more material stuff doesn't bring them happiness and fulfillment like they thought it would. And they wonder, what do I do? Where do I find information? And so they go to different spiritual teachers, and different spiritual teachers will tell them different things, and you may resonate with one person, and then after a while you start to question them, and then you start to go to another person, another guru, and you ask them about the previous guru, and you really have that fear of this spiritual bypassing, or that you may join a spiritual community and then find out it's a cult where there's abuse and stuff like that. And you may even look at my videos and think and be skeptical and concerned that maybe I'm starting a cult, which I'm not, but at the same time you have every right and should be skeptical about all spiritual teachers, even me. It's just a healthy thing to do. Alright, so what is spiritual bypassing? It's when you use spiritual concepts and practices to avoid situations and people and emotions that are causing you dysfunction in your life, causing you harm in your life, causing you stress. And so, for example, let's say you have issues with finance. A common spiritual concept would be, and these examples I'm given as just examples on how your mind can use these different things and different defense mechanisms, and how your emotions can play along for these different scenarios, which causes spiritual bypassing in how you approach these different things. Alright, so let's say you start to go on your spiritual journey and you say, I'm spiritual but I'm not religious, and you start to question capitalism and materialism and greed and societal hierarchies and oppressive hierarchies and all these different things. You start to work on dismantling the conditioning that you were conditioned with in the society or culture or country that you grew up in. You may feel lonely, feeling that many people don't share your same views or your same level of compassion or empathy or understanding. All these different things is a common thing. And it can lead to traps, which are also considered spiritual traps, where you start to have a icky feeling towards business and capitalism and money and finances, or you may have a dislike towards science and rationality and logic, and you may have all these different beliefs and opinions on how the environment is being treated and how people are being treated and how diversity and different cultures are being treated, which are all good things to have, to be aware of, and all this other stuff. The issue comes when you start to not pay attention to some of these things. So you may say, I'm really spiritual, I don't need to worry about finances. And you may think to yourself, well, we're all one and the universe will just give me everything I need. I'll manifest it into my life. But you also need to be able to take practical steps to do that. So you have to be able to use logic and rationality alongside with your intuition and gut feeling. And when you have because you can be very spiritual, feel enlightened, feel one with everything, have that in your direct experience. But if you're not paying attention to your finances, how are you going to help people? If you're saying that everything manifests for a reason, everything happens for a reason, but you're not taking any steps towards that, then it's going to be difficult to help people. And so this brings up a paradox, a bunch of paradoxes, like combining your logical, rational side and analytical side with your developing emotional, intuitive, gut feeling, abstract side. And that's a paradox. When you look at them at face value, you have logic and you have abstract, gut feeling. They, on paper, they look like, oh, these are two completely opposite things. And it can be tough. But the thing is that they're both necessary. They're both needed. And you've had them the whole time. These paradoxes that may arise of seeing the world as deeply meaningful and meaningless at the same time. That's always been there. Having to play roles, social roles, whether you're playing the role of a good employee, or a caring family member, or a person that's competent in a certain skill set. Those are roles. You've been playing those the whole time. But you can get to a point, and often get to a point where you start to see that you are playing those roles, and you can start to feel like you're being inauthentic. And so you tend to want to be more authentic and more spiritual and more just direct, and not trying to pin anything down and trying to just go with the flow and all this different stuff. But you need to have a a balance of those paradoxes, because there's a lot of paradoxes that will come into your awareness when you start meditating, when you do yoga, when you do these different mind-body connection exercises. There's a lot of paradoxes that often will come up in your awareness. You'll observe them in your thoughts, in your emotions, and how you interact with others, and they'll always be there. It's not like you became spiritual, you meditated, you had a deep meditation, you had a deep mystical experience, whether it was through a psychedelic or through a deep meditation or a tragedy or a life and death situation. Regardless of how it happened, now you're here. If you're watching this video and you resonate with it, you're here and you're noticing all these paradoxes that you have to play the social game while also seeing and observing that you're playing the social game. You may even get to the point where you see the limits of language. How my definition of a car is different than your definition of a car. You may start to get the experience of how subjective our perspectives are. How we can have a very deep emotional experience, but no amount of words or concepts or complexity of concepts or intellect can give that other person that experience. That's where the limits of language come in. You may be dealing with that paradox. And it's not that something happened to you and now you're a chosen one and you're special and everyone else is asleep. It's more so that you're dealing with stuff in your direct awareness and you're trying to understand it. And you've tried logic and rationality and that worked for a little bit. And now you're trying spiritual concepts and abstract thinking and using that as your primary mode of orienting yourself in the world after this experience. But you need both. And if you don't have both and you don't take both of these sides of polarity seriously, your life is going to be stressful, continue to be stressful. And it's easy to say that. It's tough to go through that process, I know. To live and rest in paradoxes. Because more than likely you have difficulty sharing this with other people because they don't understand what you mean by the limits of language. They don't understand what you mean about life being able to be meaningful and meaningless at the same time, that it's deeply personal and impersonal at the same time. A lot of people don't know what you're talking about when you say that stuff. A lot of them will think you're crazy or nuts or overthinking or impractical. You'll get those criticisms if you haven't already. And it's not one of those things where it's like, you're right, they're wrong, they're right, you're wrong. It's not about a right or wrong. It's just what is. And to play devil's advocate in a sense, maybe there's things that you're aware of, there's more things you're aware of that is actually causing you more stress than the same people that you may judge as being asleep. Maybe because they don't have as much awareness, they're actually more efficient and more productive and more compassionate and more caring in a domain of your life because they're not as aware of different aspects of their psyche, their psychology, their emotions, their body. So maybe instead of saying they're asleep, I know it's tough to hear, but maybe you're asleep in a certain domain. So all these different paradoxes will come up. It'll make your life difficult. It'll bring more responsibility for you. Because you can get to the point where you realize you're doing it to yourself. And you can even tell people that you're doing it to yourself. And they'll say, yeah, you're very self-aware. You're very understanding of that. But you still realize you're doing it to yourself. Let's say you have an argument with somebody, a disagreement. Let's say they've been telling you something. They've been joking with you in a certain way, and you don't like the way they're joking with you, but you don't say anything because you feel like you don't want to have conflict, you don't want to start conflict, so this resentment and this tension builds up in you when you're around them. Let's say you get to the point where you just can't take it anymore, and you tell them, I don't like it when you joke with me like that. And to them, they may be totally surprised of like, I didn't know this was happening. I thought this was fine. I thought this interaction and these jokes were okay. I thought we were bonding. But when you finally get to a point where you're like, no, I'm done with this, and you mention it to them, you can have an argument with them. And you can tell them, yes, so it bothers me that you make these jokes. And I realize that you make these jokes with other people, but for me, it bothers me. And I've been keeping it in because I didn't want to cause any confrontation or any stress or any tension. And I thought you could pick up on my social cues and my body language that I wasn't appreciative of the way you were joking. And after a while, I was just getting more and more frustrated, and I was talking to you less and less, and you felt like you could sense something was going on because you had this confused look on your face, but I didn't say anything and you didn't say anything, and it just kept on going on. And I was doing this, and this was my part of this tension between us. And I realized I was doing that, and I should have brought it up to you sooner, and I'm sorry. And they could look at you and say, wow, that's very self-aware. I wish you would have told me sooner, and we could have resolved this or worked on it. You can get to the point where you see conflicts with other people and you realize your part in it. How you were making up a story or feeling betrayed. And maybe you were. Maybe you did need to set a boundary sooner. Maybe you needed to stop associating with certain individuals sooner. You can be aware of all that stuff and see it going on and see yourself doing it to yourself. And these are just part of the challenges of this, what they call spiritual journey. But even the concept of spiritual journey, that's a concept. You can't grab something and say, this is a spiritual journey. I have it. If I grab this water bottle, this is my water bottle. I drink water from it. I drink protein shakes from it. This is mine. how do you know that how do I know this is mine? I didn't make it. I bought it. It could have been someone else's before it was mine. If I misplace it or lose it, is it still mine? And it's a concept. For an easier example, because this one might be a little bit too difficult to understand. Let's say, I don't have one in front of me. Let's say I have an apple. The concept is apple. But let's say I'm hungry. I need some nutrients. I need to eat something. I could talk about apple all day. I can write it down on a piece of paper. I could describe it, how it tastes, how it looks, the memories I've had about eating different apples. I can picture it in my mind on how it looks and I can have the knowledge and understanding on how it's grown and the soil that's used and the way the different growing procedures to grow an apple tree and how long it takes. I could have all that knowledge and all this stuff. But I'm still sitting there hungry for an apple. And my body needs the nutrients of an apple. So to apply that with any concept that you think of, spiritual awakening, enlightenment, rationality, ego, good person, bad person, happy, sad, emotions, words, all this sensations. It's not the same thing as the direct experience of it. When you say I'm anxious, where did you get anxious? Where did you get the word anxiety from, the concept of anxiety? Somebody told you. It could have easily just been said, you could have changed the word from I feel bottle, which sounds like word salad. Because in the English language and in many languages, it does sound like word salad because it's not attributed to the thing that is being pointed towards. And these are just examples of the limits of language. The only reason, I'll say my body feels sore, it could be changed to a different word, like my body feels crate. My body feels lamppost. But of course, me saying that and me giving that example sounds crazy. It sounds insane. It sounds like word salad. It sounds like a psychotic break. But what I'm trying to point you towards is that words and concepts and how we use them is directly influenced by our culture, our upbringing, and our conditioning in societies that we grew up in. The word itself has no inherent meaning, only the meaning you give to it. And all of this limits of language and stuff like that, and going on a spiritual journey and spiritual bypassing and all these different things, they're concepts. But this can be another trap of spiritual bypassing. You can say, well, they're all concepts. And because of that, I don't have to take them that seriously. But no, it's almost the exact opposite. When you realize how much limits there are to language, you can go through a period of feeling deeply depressed and nihilistic. But if you keep on going, eventually you just start to have moments where you just laugh and feel a little bit more at ease, because you still have to use concepts. You still have to play a social role. You still have to, even talk into this camera, I have to use concepts and words and analogies and metaphors, and examples and all these different things to convey a message for you to understand to the best of your ability. That's necessary. If I said, oh, the limits of language, it's all a concept and it has no inherent meaning, how am I gonna go to work? How would I have relationships with people? I wouldn't be able to. And if I don't have those, how would I feed myself? How would I love myself and love others? If I saw the limits of language and just stopped there and said, well, it's all meaningless. There's a lot of people that get to that point and they just say, I'm done being on this. I'm done being here. They get to that point. And that's one of the scary things about spiritual awakening and these different things, because it's not all sunshine and rainbows. There is very difficult truths and difficult paradoxes that can get you to the point where it's like you have two decisions that you end up going with. It's either not being here anymore or being here and seeing it as a play, but taking it seriously, even though you know it's not as serious as you thought it was. And that's not talked about a lot in spiritual communities that I've seen online or people that I've talked to. There's very real, difficult, life-threatening things that can happen on a spiritual journey. And the thing also too is that you don't get to choose when you have a spiritual awakening. You don't get to choose if you have it when you're 2 years old, 20 years old, 50 years old, 80 years old, 100 years old. You don't get to choose it regardless of your age, your gender, your sexual orientation, how many grades you completed in school, if you're homeless, if you're a billionaire, if you get into drugs, if you stay straight edge. You don't get to choose. It's one of those things that just happens to you. And this isn't, I feel, talked about as much in spiritual communities that I've seen. And I could be wrong because there's so many different spiritual communities that I could be missing something, and probably I am. But from what I've seen in my experience, it's not talked about as much. And it's not a good selling point either to say like those different dangers. It makes people feel uncomfortable. It can make people feel like they're having an existential crisis because they are. And it saddens me, because that's why I feel like it's important to integrate science with spirituality, with religion, with finances, with all the domains that it takes to be human. But at the same time, that's me holding on to a story. And even though I emotionally feel strong about it, and I have an identity towards it, I know it's just my own perspective, and there's 8 billion other perspectives in 2026. And my perspective is right at times, wrong at other times. I have strengths, I have weaknesses, I have blind spots, I have things I'm good at, I have things I'm terrible at. I'm human just like you. And when I say these different things about spiritual bypassing it's not like I feel like I'm just up here and I'm just like looking at everybody like, oh, this person's spiritual bypassing here, and oh, this person's asleep there, and this person's just dumb, and all these different things. Sometimes I observe my mind doing that. But at the same time, I've gone through those things. And I mean, I'm 34 years old, and my childhood and my way that I perceive the world from a real young age has been different than mainstream. Even that brings up challenges. Because it's not like I've just started speaking these different things. It's through early childhood I've been questioning why different people have different perspectives on a similar situation. Why do they believe what they believe? Why do I believe what I believe? And I've been fascinated by that. And does that make me special? Does that make me enlightened? Does that make me holier than thou? No. It just is my challenge and beauty and role in this play of life. And I don't mean that in like a religious or a spiritual or a scientific concept. I just mean that as in like just what is. Like everything that I say, all the words, concepts, metaphors, no matter how complex and deep or how simple or superficial, and no matter what anyone else says and the words they use and the beliefs they have and the thoughts they have and all this different stuff, it's not original. I'm pulling from different information that I've learned. You're pulling from different information that you've learned, from different experiences that I've gone through, from different experiences that you've gone through. And we have all of these different things that influence what we believe and what we think and the words we use and the type of words we use and our personality and all this different stuff. And we package it and say, this is who I am, and we give it to the world. So no matter how spiritual you feel like you are, no matter how intellectual, complex, special you feel like you are, you gained everything you think, everything you feel, everything you believe, everything you behave from your culture, from society, from the globe, from your experiences, and even from thousands of years of evolution. And I have too. And I feel like that's the deepest cosmic joke. And even me saying all this stuff can sound crazy, insane, out there, woo-woo. But I still have this perspective, and I still go to work, still pay my bills, still work out, still eat healthy. Sometimes I eat unhealthy. Sometimes I get stressed. Sometimes I feel deep bliss. You may feel like I'm crazy, but I'm still able to function in the world. I still made a 34-hour video using concepts and words and analogies in a linear fashion. If I was psychotic and crazy, I wouldn't be able to do that. So, but then at the same time, it's like, I can't tell you how to think and how to feel and and what to do. you have to figure that out for yourself. And regardless of what anyone says, you're going to do that anyway. And you should. But yeah, I realize this video isn't for everybody, and that's okay. Because I'm just sharing my perspective, which is the only thing I can do. What you do with it, I don't have any control over. I can give disclaimers and warnings, but at the end of the day, you're going to do what you're going to do. And there's going to be consequences, whether good or bad, for what you do. And it's my belief that that's just how the world does its checks and balances. And with that, this is the video on spiritual bypassing, giving different examples of my own personal story and how I see different things, and hopefully you gain something from it. At least I know that I have from making this video. And yeah, if you like this video, please hit the like button and the subscribe button if you want to watch more, because in this context of YouTube, that's what's required to have it reach more people. All right, I'm signing off. Take care.